I remember saying in one of the episodes when we were talking about Too Much Punch for Judy touring, how I found it hugely frustrating that my plays were known because Ape were touring them, but my name wasn't attached to them because they weren't in book form until Chicken and widely available. There was no connection between what I was doing and the plays. And it wasn't until DVDA published them in 1999, I guess, that the name kind of became attached. And from there on, I was so fortunate in getting my name out there and my plays out there, to the extent that, what's this, 2006, the local newspaper, in publicising our play Sequin Suits, wrote a little feature about my exam success with plays, saying he may not be a household name, but one youth theatre playwright has found a fame of sorts. And this wasn't a local paper, this was the TES, the Times Educational Supplement. It was quite weird, and at this point, I think I was an assistant chief examiner for EdXL, so I'd go into schools, and it had got to the point where if a school wasn't using one of my plays, it was like, oh, I was a bit miffed, which is a very strange position to be in. And I had, through Tim Ford, a connection with a guy who ran a video company called Cass Productions. It still exists, and I worked with them quite recently on a new project. And Gary Cass, who was the owner of Cass Productions, Gary Cassie, and a drama teacher from Wilden and Tim came forward and said, we've got a proposal for you. We would like to make a DVD to help teachers stage your plays, because they are a little bit different, and you can talk on it and introduce the excerpts. And Tim, who'd produced Kill Jill, wanted to use his Birmingham Young Rep Theatre to produce the DVD. They had a title all ready to go. They had a series of exemplified DVDs. I think they had Dance Exemplified and something else exemplified. And they were going to do a Wheelerplays Exemplified. So from this feeling I was being under-recognised, suddenly this was like, whoa, I'm being over-recognised now. And I agreed. I was so excited and so pleased that they were doing it. And Wheelerplays Exemplified was born. I had no say in what the extracts were. They chose them, which in itself was really nice, because some that I probably wouldn't have chosen were chosen, and others that I was absolutely delighted had been recognised. So to start off with, Channel of Love, which had never taken off as a perform play. I mean, it had been incredibly successful when we'd done it, our only production to get into the NSDF. They did the scene brilliantly of the teenage pregnancy and the birth, a teenager giving birth to a baby. And if you've got this DVD in your vaults, it's worth having a look at that. They do it fantastically. It's a lovely little bit of narrative theatre and ensemble theatre. It's a fantastic performance, so do check that out. They did some extracts from more obvious things. Missing Dan Nolan was quite new, so they did a fairly naturalistic section of that, the noodles and out bit. From Arson About, they did some great little sequences, and that's now Butcher Butcher. And from Chicken, they did a monologue, a really good monologue, Nutjob's monologue, in its old form. From Too Much Punch for Judy, they did the early Bob and Knob bit. They did that quite well. Lovely bit from Kill Jill, which, again, until today, and I'd watched the DVD again, I'd forgotten it even existed. The very opening of Kill Jill, I often used mimed sections in my plays at the beginning to capture interest. They produced the opening section of Kill Jill really, really well, and in a wonderfully mimed sequence, very typical of the way I would do it. Only I think probably with Tim they did it better than I could have managed, and the skills of the young actors are certainly fantastic. I haven't mentioned Too Much Punch for Judy, and Too Much Punch for Judy, they did, I haven't got the current copy of the book, so I'm sorry I can't hold that up. Too Much Punch for Judy, they did one monologue twice. I used it ever such a lot in my teaching from the time this DVD came out through until the end of my teaching career. It was a wonderful way to teach monologues. They had one monologue with the girl playing Judy. It's the scene where she's making the spaghetti bolognese without the spaghetti. And she does it sat down, and then she does it stood up. Both of them are really well performed, and it was a great way to show different ways of doing monologues well. Really, really good. And also amongst the monologues was one from Graham, which again was done superbly. Really nice to see Graham being used. And then finally, this was the pièce de résistance for me, Legal Weapon. And what they did with Legal Weapon was they chose to do the accident scene. Not an easy scene to do. Wow, it's an absolutely stunning version of Accidents. And before we came to do our DVD of Too Much Punch for Judy, I would always, if I went into workshops in schools, I would always use this version of it. It's a wonderful physical theatre version of the Legal Weapon car accident, which is lesser known than Chicken or Too Much Punch. But they do it wonderfully, and I think it's an example of how to do what I call human pyrotechnics that is just as good as, almost as good as the one Charlie later did with our production of Too Much Punch for Judy. But up until that, it remained the kind of pinnacle of car accident scenes that you can produce. So, if you don't have a copy of this, or if you do have a copy of this, you know, look it out, because there are some wonderful little hidden nuggets on this of great stuff. Look, I'm holding this up with a stapler. How advanced is that? And if you don't have it, it is still available on my Wheelerplays store. It's pretty cheap now. When it was first released, it was 48 quid, I think. And again, when they said that, I thought, this is selling of you know, I'm being oversold. But it's there on my website now, I think at $13.99. So have a look. Wheelerplays store. Thanks very much.